Well, not unsurprisingly, the United National Transport Union is deeply distressed and saddened at the deaths today. And the union's General Secretary, Steve Harris, joins us now on the set of Newsday. Steve, good afternoon to you and welcome. I'm not asking you to pass judgment on what happened in Cape Town because it's still under investigation. But there seems to be a point of contention around boom gates at this level crossing. Typically, are boom gates a problem at level crossings around the country?
Well, obviously, this has been a concern to us for some time now. And we have called on government on several occasions to ensure that boom gates are operative and installed. We just find it shockingly to understand in the 21st century that we are in, that we are still battling to ensure that these sort of things are operating under the tremendous circumstances that we find ourselves in. Because if we had proper technology, we could have avoided this sort of thing.
Is it a technological problem or simply one of maintenance?
I think it's both. It's both. I think that technologically we're not advanced sufficiently if we compare ourselves to the European countries, and obviously the lack of maintenance can also be a added conservative effort to this.
Why do you think there is a lack of maintenance?
Well, if one looks at what's happening in Praza itself, it's running under tremendous stress levels as far as people and also finances. It's not bringing in the income that it used to bring in because people are not paying the fares and they're battling financially, and government is not supplying sufficient funds to be able to deal with these issues.
Conceivably, could there be many other level crossings that could experience similar problems, possibly with the tragic consequence that we have seen today because of a lack of capital investment and poor maintenance?
Most definitely. I mean, we just look at what happened earlier this year on the 4th of January at the Geneva station, where 21 people were killed and 254 people injured. So these aren't the only level crossings. There's numerous level crossings in South Africa, but we need to at least look at those that are used more often than those that are not used that often.
Approximately how many would there be, do you think?
I have no idea at this point in time to be able to.
Could run into hundreds, though,
yes,
given the extent of the rail network that we've got in this country. When you raise concerns like this with PRASA, what sort of response do you get?
Well, we raised it with government. Government made a concerted effort with Transnet.
In fact, overall, it's a Transnet issue, not a PRASA issue.
Yeah, overall it's a Transnet issue. And they had implemented a automatic system in Rustenburg, and they kicked off with a bang, and that's where it ended. And this was a good couple of years ago, I'd say about 5 years ago, because we were invited to that launch, and that's where it's ended. I mean, there's no continuity and there's no sincerity. If you look at the amount of changes in the ministry and the changes in group CEOs, there seems to be no consistency of driving these things.
What kind of pressure then can your organization bring to bear?
Well, we'll continue. Whatever platform we have, we affiliated to FEDUSA, and we'll use our platforms through FEDUSA and NEDLAC to put pressure on government to ensure that we can up the safety of level crossings in the interest of the country.
Could you take us into the cab of a train, if you can, when this kind of thing happens? I'm just looking at your statement, and you say that depending on the speed of the train, it takes quite some time before it can actually come to a complete standstill. So once that line has been breached, an accident is almost inevitable.
Well, that's it, you see. And it takes between 250 to 500 meters for a standard passenger coach to be able to bring the train to its standstill.
Approximately what speed might there be?
Well, that'll be at about 60 kilometers an hour, because those trains don't travel much at that level. And the trauma that a train driver has to live with. You can imagine now, this person, even if he gets the necessary support, which PRASA is currently giving, because I've just spoken to the regional manager who assured me that the trauma is being, the counselling has been given to the people involved. But you can imagine the trauma that this poor driver goes through. There's nothing that he can do. I mean, to stop that train and to enable him to avoid such a tragic incident. And then he's got to live with that incident in his mind for years afterwards.
Having said that, though, and again, this is all subject of an investigation, but you also make the very valid point here in your statement that motorists must also look before crossing railway lines. The sense I get sometimes is we tend to have a slightly cavalier approach to this. We take chances.
100%. This is what happens, is people think that they can outspeed the train, and they do take the chances instead of rather being safe and trying to avoid. And it's a big tragedy to sit with 7 lives taken, and obviously 7 workers that have now got to have got family members that are dependent on them, and they're no longer there to be able to feed them.
Thank you very much for joining us. The United National Transport Union's General Secretary, Steve Harris.